Welcome back, everybody. This is Spiraling Up with Joe. This particular discussion, we are going to be speaking about stagnation. And so I like to always start with a definition, just so everybody is at the same starting point. So with a quick Google, the definition of stagnation is the state of not flowing or moving, lack of activity, growth, or development. So I'm going to start it off with just a question, as I always do, and I will let Lisa go ahead and give her perspective on each of the topics that we cover. Okay, so the first question, Lisa, I have for you is, why is motion important, and what evidence in nature can we find to help prove this?
Motion is important because motion is the indication of progression and movement. Once we are stopped, we're no longer moving. So, to reference nature, if you look outside, there's always motion going on. Just even look at the forest. You'll never see the forest not in movement. It's always continuously in motion and moving. If you look at your body, the circulation, that's motion. So motion is necessary for everything. And without motion, that's where the stagnation comes into play.
Right. And so I guess what you're saying essentially is that if things are not in motion, they're basically dead. Is that accurate to say?
I would say yes, because if an ocean is not moving, my mother used to say a phrase that I found out is not necessarily an official phrase, but she would say stood water, meaning like it was standing still. And so if you ever smell water that's not fresh, there's like a rancid scent to it. If you pass a pond that has no activity and no movement, that means there's no life. So it is dead. And if we stop circulating within, we're no longer alive.
So I think that most people could, understand that concept. It seems pretty simple, but what I think people may miss is that just because something is moving, it doesn't mean it's actually in a healthy state. And so when we relate stagnation to people now, yes, our body, thankfully has components to it that move without us having to make any conscious decision about it. But where we begin to affect the flow of the inside of our body and thus our quality of life, and how we look, how we feel, and so on and so forth, how important is moving around and the activity of an individual, like on a day-to-day basis, you know what I'm saying? And so even though we're kind of moving around, we get up to go to the bathroom, we got to move around at some point, but can a person that has minimal movement still be considered healthy and growing in a healthy way?
So I probably need you to break that down a little more because when you say a person who has minimal movement, I need a
Mhm.
little more backstory on that because if
Okay.
we're talking about, let's say, an elderly person where they're minimal,
Yeah.
or let's take a person who is bedridden, it is crucial for them to even move in the bed. So I'm a Pilates instructor, and one of the reasons, if I'm correct, is that Joseph Pilates created Pilates for people who were bedridden. So that's how that
Mm.
whole reformer was created, so that it started in a bed, a hospital bed, and he would have them moving on these resistance bands because movement is major. It's movement is life. So I'm not sure if I addressed the question you had or if you need a
No,
little
that's
more
that's
back.
a good point that you bring up. So, all right, but it still, I think, applies to that because now we have we've introduced into this conversation people that are bedridden and not in the best health, elderly, and so on and so forth. But see, now you got somebody who maybe is young still, and has little movement due to maybe laziness, procrastination, for whatever reason, they just can't get going. And we've heard the term couch potato. So those types of people now. on the flip side, I have seen people we would consider to be elderly have much more energy than a lot of younger people who happen to be a little bit stagnant. So this is why I'm saying it, I think it still fits. You understand? So slow movement or no movement, what why is this important for life? Like, what begins to happen to us when our body slows down, whether it's due to some accident, our age, or our health, or just a lack of motivation.
Most movement to me begins in the mind. So when you
Mm,
have a procrastinator and you have a person who's, if you're going to call it lazy, it really is the stagnation always begins in your mind first before it ever
mm,
hits your body. And so, in the mental capacity, so let's take procrastination. This is something I think many people can relate to it. So, procrastination a lot of times comes from every time comes from lack of movement. And I'll put myself on the chopping block. I
mm,
have a project that I'm working on, and I've gathered, when I say enough information, so this is movement. I've gathered enough information about this situation that I've got everything I need and literally saw it all in front of me, all of the information. So there was movement because I had to make movement to get this. So movement in a certain direction is what matters most. Don't get me wrong, because even movement in the wrong direction still is movement, and you have the
mm,
opportunity to reverse because you're still
mhm,
available
mhm,
or capable. So I had all this information, a lot of it, and I ended up getting way too much information. It's analysis paralysis, which causes a form of procrastination because I'm thinking I still have to prepare more and more and more and more. So I hadn't made a move on what it was. Now, what that did was me not making a move on the goal that I had set. I knew I had the goal, so it's literally sitting there. And I started noticing a lot of things that were changing around me. My cabinets got more cluttered because now I'm still in this, got to get more information. So I'm not focusing on anything else. Cabinets got cluttered, car got cluttered. My room was in order, but not in orderly order. So
mhm,
the lack of movement, literally, you can see the death, if you want to call it, that begins, the decay that begins to take
mm,
place in your life. And you don't have to be in a coffin because that beginning of the decay of going into your kitchen and you see the cabinets are out of order. I took to the cabinets and I kid you not, movement started. Just from
mm.
that little one move, movement started. So I had more ideas. I took to the next part that I see. So if you look around someone's life, you can see where they're stagnated and where they're not. And it's no judgment, but you can tell.
That's great because we are going to get just a little bit more in depth. So that was a great start. So I guess my second question then is, how do you, and to the audience, I'm looking down because I'm looking at my notes. All right. So how do you distinguish between holding off and being stagnant? You know, this is like a two-part question. So that was the first one. How do you distinguish between holding off and being stagnant? And how does one know when preparation has become procrastination? Like, what behaviors do we exhibit? And how do we know when reasons become excuses?
Preparation becomes procrastination when you are not moving toward the mark, no matter what. It's because procrastination, you won't be moving towards the mark. You will be staying in the same place. So that's when preparation becomes procrastination. Preparation looks more like you're gaining momentum,
Mhm,
where it's almost like rolling. Let's just take a square and you start rolling a square block, concrete block. It's hard at first, but as you're getting the momentum, that block, the corners, you start seeing progression because the corners start becoming more round. And that's
mm,
where you know that you're progressing. Say if you take that square block again, that same example that I gave, If that block if that block is still a block, you're pretty much procrastinating because movement creates momentum. So if you're like stuck or stagnant, or if you look around and you see that things you're supposed to be doing, you just haven't, it's called busy work. You're doing a lot of nothing. And once you're
Mm,
doing that, you gotta kind of take a look within. But the biggest compass we'll ever have in life are our feelings. And so, if inside your feeling is like you feel this motivated feeling and it's movement, motivation is good to begin with. And if you're moving with that and you're excited and it's going, then you know you're in the right headspace. And
mm,
also how it feels. Is it light? Is it airy? Is it joyous? Do you want to get up
mm,
and do it again? Or procrastination has a vibration to it. So procrastination has a low feeling. So it's more lower on that, if we're going to call it anything, I would call it a level of consciousness, because there's an upside down pyramid of your levels of consciousness.
mm,
Procrastination is in that lower area where
mm,
you're carrying excuses. So excuses have a low vibration. You'll feel like, kind of like, you see people doing, fidgeting, uh,
mm.
uh, stalling when they are giving reason why they either have moved or have not moved. So preparation becomes procrastination when we find that we are not making any headway.
I know for me, I mentally usually, especially when it comes to things like maybe going to the gym, cleaning certain parts of my house that I dread cleaning, what I have a tendency to do is a lot of engine revving, zoom, zoom, but I'm not hitting the gas yet. The engine revving represents my knowledge that I have to do it. Like I know this has to get done because it's bothering me. Yeah, like I need to do it or nothing's gonna change. And I don't like a dirty house and I don't like being overweight. So those two things I always want to change. And whether I'm even focused on them or not, they bother me. It's always in the back of my mind somewhere. And so I keep saying, I have this little conversation, whether it's a whisper or it's out loud, like, literally talking to myself. You got to get it done. When are you going to do it? Okay, we'll start this day. Well, okay. What do we got? And then what happens is when the day comes that I said I was going to do something, if it's not going to get done, I give all kind of reasons why it couldn't get done, that day. Like maybe, okay, I had a tough work day and I'm just out of steam, or, something came up. Something always gets in the way. Is this procrastination and I'm holding off because I really just don't feel like doing it? I would say yes, if I'm being honest, but um these are the questions that I begin to ask myself, or are these reasons actually good reasons? So the other part of that question was, when do reasons become excuses? So, and all the while nothing's getting done. So I would say I'm preparing my mind to get it done. Like I need that mental preparation. So when would you say that now has become, an excuse and now I'm just procrastinating?
So I would say that I mean, when a person says, I'm preparing my mind to get it done, I would say that's fine. It's more or less what happens afterwards. So I'd like to unpack a couple of things. The part of you got to back up for me with your story when you said you're prepping to do something
Yeah.
and that engine is revving. There's a backstory on a lot of things. So it's kind of like there's levels to everything. So even procrastination has levels. So I may be the type of person who procrastinates, sits in my bed, and does not think of the plan that I have for tomorrow. The next day, I may say, you know what, got to get it in gear. Now I'm in the bed, same place, and now I'm thinking about the plan I did tomorrow. That's still movement, that's still progress.
Mhm. Okay.
And so it may not be progress of a jump. So sometimes where we disappoint ourselves is we have preconceived notions how far that jump is supposed to be in order to
Mm,
consider it progress. So when you have that, how you can tell if it is procrastination is if you don't, is if the movement doesn't happen, meaning even where you are in your mind. So if the next day after that, I'm sitting on my bed, I've already thought about what I need to do. Now I write it down and I map out a plan. That's still movement. Now,
Mm,
obviously, it's going to get to a point where I'm going to need to see some proof of what I'm writing down that I'm doing it. The backstory on that, or because what needs to be unpacked there is how many times do I tell myself I'm going to do something and I don't do it, even before
mm,
this situation came. So it's not like a one and done thought of, okay, how do I know when I'm moving? It's more like, let me go back and see, do I even obey myself? If I give
mm,
myself a command, am I going to do it? Do I honor my own word? And that
mm.
is already in and of itself, that's where the procrastination usually begins because we don't
Okay.
honor ourselves. I'm gonna get up and go to the gym on Wednesday. Wednesday comes, nope. Then, or I'm gonna do this job for my this project for my job. I'm gonna start on Monday. Don't do it. So it's a lot of little no's that create the procrastination. Just how they say a lot of failures create success. There's a lot of no's to yourself that create the procrastination. So, one way to start where I've started is the most important person you'll ever eavesdrop on is yourself. What do you tell
I like
yourself
that.
throughout day to day? Most important conversation you'll ever listen to is you to you, because that will solve so many issues, so much stagnation. So, where I would say the cure, a good step to start, meditation. A lot of people may not believe that. You have to quiet your mind and start hearing yourself. And if I want something, do I do it? Or do I get on that scale and say, I know I was supposed to go to the gym, but I didn't go to the gym and now I'm bigger?
I'm beginning to understand, even though outwardly it doesn't look like anything happened yet, that mental state is important. It still can be movement, and it's important to listen to that inner voice, that argument, because it becomes more apparent. The more you ignore that voice inside, it becomes more apparent that you're not listening to yourself. And I like the way you put that. So even for people's dreams, if we have dreams and goals that we want to reach, there can be movement in that regard. That dream can be moving along. Those goals can be moving along, even when we are mentally prepping, doing all of the preliminary work, because there is a lot of planning sometimes that has to go into, even with things like working out. If you've got children, you've got certain responsibilities that already kind of fill up your day. Now you have to move things over to make the space to work out. And so yes, I understand the whole planning. And so as long as there is some type of honest movement, then I get it. Then I think we're still in a healthy state. But when people's dreams die, and how people's dreams and goals die, is because they're just, there is no movement toward those things at all. And so this is what I want people to begin to be able to recognize, before it gets to a point where it can't even be revived. So one thing I can't stand is regret, and looking back at moments that I had to kind of get things going, and that all too familiar statement that I make, man, if I would have started way back then, instead of 2 weeks ago, then where would I be now? And I know that's not necessarily a healthy state of mind to be in, but it's one that a lot of people have. Those conversations are had with, even with myself, when I realized, dag, first of all, this wasn't as hard as I thought it was once I got it going finally. And yeah, now I wish I would have done it a long time ago. But the important thing is to always start to take steps, even small steps, toward whatever goals, whatever dreams you have, just to keep it moving so that it does not die. And so my next question to you then is, what areas in life do you think we can be stagnant and not be aware of it? So we talked about hearing that voice inside, but how do we know when we're stagnant in any area of life? Whether it's cleaning our house, reaching our goals, completing a project, whatever, losing weight, all of that stuff. Um, how can we be stagnant and not be aware of it, or is it possible to not be aware of it?
In my opinion, your emotions are your GPS system, and
Mm,
you wouldn't need anyone to tell you anything at all if you pay attention to your emotions. And that is
mm,
your guide, literally. Your gut to me is like the second brain. And
mm,
you know you're stagnant or procrastinating or should do something by what you're emotionally feeling on a day-to-day basis. There are people who wear masks on a day-to-day basis where you see them in public and they may seem very cordial, hello, so there are people who can mask for the outside or who can put up a facade. I'll say a lot of us put up, I'm willing to say all of us have put up facades where we're sitting on something.
mm,
Let's take a person who's a singer or a dancer or a performer, and that person watches American Idol.
mm,
Now they've
mm,
got talent on that stage and they see someone. Let's go down the aisle of that person's not as talented as the watcher is. You know you're stagnant when you start hating and
mm,
all of those feelings start coming up. That wasn't that good. And man, I could do
mm.
that. That's your GPS system. We never pay attention. That's why I say you are the most important person to eavesdrop on. So let's move that over. I'll give an example of myself. I had a situation where a friend of mine, we both had our businesses, our schools, right? And her school was, bringing in people, and I'm sitting there like, how? Because in my opinion, like I offer this dynamic program, and every time I kept seeing floods and floods and floods of people. And that was when I started realizing, why am I feeling hatred for her? I should be celebrating her. So
Mm.
you're moving in the right direction because now, as I've moved in the right direction and as I'm more aware of what I'm feeling, I can look at someone and celebrate it.
Yeah, that's a
Because
good point.
I've learned to see people who are so-called haters differently now. And if
Mm,
I see someone who maybe they seem like they're hating on something I'm doing, I'm more compassionate in that area because that'll be the person that I'll reach down for, or you know how they say send the elevator back down.
yeah.
That's a person I know they're not reaching their potential and they don't know how, or maybe they need a flashlight on that. And so I'm more inclined to say, hey, what's your goal? And what would you like to do? And I have
Mhm.
had that um, situation happen. And I feel like both people grow better in that atmosphere as opposed to being upset that someone is hating. Because when you start really understanding that emotional GPS, you won't take 99.9% of what people say personally.
Right,
But that's another
right.
topic.
I totally get that. I have my own experiences with that from on both sides of the coin. There's a me before and a me after that particular growth. And I'm not saying there's not more growing to do. I definitely do, but I can see where I have improved in some of those areas, and that's a really good point that you make. I will be transparent and say this. I had a basketball scholarship to college, right after I graduated high school. And I'm not going to give the whole story, but I was a teenager, young, troubled, just really thought I knew everything. And I basically messed up my scholarship, right? And at the time, I felt like, hey, it doesn't matter. I'm having a good time. It is what it is. I'm going to do what I want to do, type stuff. And there was just too much discipline that came with sticking to playing ball and doing the right thing, showing up on time, and everything else that comes with that. So now, fast forward years later, here comes the WNBA, and to this day, I have a hard time watching them. I won't do it. And the very thing that I am thinking is what could have been. That should be me. And then I got all kind of criticism for the ball players out there, you know. Yo, I would have did this, you know what I'm saying? So I'm the hater in that story. And so I totally get it. And yeah, now I am working on learning to celebrate the fact that these women have seen their dreams come true with that. And it does
Yes.
take some work. And I take that lesson to help me seize the day now on other things that I want to do for myself. So at the very least, I could say that motivates me to, that serves as motivation for things I want to do now. It may not necessarily be, I may not be able to go back into back in. I may not be able to go to the WNBA, so that is a dream that I let die. However, I can still pull from it um, the motivation to not ever put myself in that position of regret again. And being a hater, that ain't something I want to be anyway. So yeah, that's a very good point that you make.
So, since we're on the topic of procrastination, one thing to realize, another signal to look at future possibilities of procrastination, because we started this conversation with what's behind the person. But let's talk about what's in the now, because you're
Mm-hmm.
always forever in the now. You can't
Yeah.
go that way. You almost don't, you can't go that way, right? And so you're always in the now. What happens when you see something and you begin to regret it? You set up the pathway for more procrastination because your
Mm-hmm.
regret sets off that negative feeling inside you again, telling your inner Joe that you failed,
Mm-hmm.
and not just failed every time you watch the NBA. So what I would say is this is an acid test. I like to call it, where when you watch the NBA, if anything, you start feeling that rumble, like, oh, that feeling inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
That's your GPS once again saying
Mm-hmm.
this is an unhealed part of your heart or
Mm-hmm.
your thoughts or your feelings that you want to take a look at, because in that moment, let's just think about it. Let me give some visual aids to it. So this part has the lead on it. This is the writing part. This is the erasing part. The writing part, let's say this is closer to God. This is God.
Mm-hmm.
This is where your relationship with the Most High is. You want to be more in that Christ-like mentality. That's over here. Over here is obviously the opposite. You don't want to be in this place over here. So, as we talk about regret, what do you feel? Do you feel good? Do
Oh
you
no.
feel right? So, we're moving in the area of the
Mm-hmm.
eraser. So, you're
Mm-hmm.
erasing those good feelings. That means you're going further away from that
Mm-hmm.
mentality. And
Mm-hmm.
so, when you're watching the WNBA, and you start feeling that regret, the hate, you literally in that moment. So, what I've studied is every 17 or so seconds, you have a negative thought. If you let it sit for 17 seconds, it repeats itself, kind of like the movie Gremlins. Starts popping out
Mm-hmm.
more, and another one's coming, and another one. You ever, and how I know this is true, when my kids were younger and they would do something to get in trouble, and listen, it wasn't even that bad of a situation. And my son one day came in the room and said to me, Mom, I want to tell you, sometimes you talk yourself into getting more mad. And I thought about it. So it could be something where I'm not happy with what happened when they came in. So now I'm in that thought. Now I'm in it
Right.
again and in it again. Then all of a sudden, what I feel is bigger, because there have been times when, I'm getting on my twins and I'm like, well, wasn't that big of a deal. Why did how did I get there?
Yeah.
And so it really is harboring on negativity for more than 17 seconds. So that includes regret, that includes envy, it includes all of those things that make you feel lower than who you are.
Mm.
So
And that,
the
yeah, I could see how it could end up ruining your entire day because all
entire
you've been
day,
sitting there doing is
entire
multiplying and
day,
multiplying, and
entire
it
day. Yeah.
debilitates you. It really
So
does.
there are some people who do not know how to take a self-evaluation and they
Mm,
just don't know how to come out of being upset because the feeling is real. So it's
mm,
not like it's not real to them. They don't
mm,
realize they have the power to press stop. You have the
right.
power to give yourself how you feel. If it
Mm,
was an absolute that we could not do it, then somebody would have to explain to me how you can have two people. Let's say their situation is similar. Let's go with something drastic. Like two people that get into a fight or robbed or something like that. You'll have one person who can bounce back and rebound and start going back upward. Then you'll have
mm,
another one that spirals down. And it
mm,
really is a matter of taking control of what you feel. So that's to me, the precursor to procrastination is not taking control of the negative things or the envious things there was a movie I saw called Seven Deadly Sins. I believe that those have everything to do with how we feel about ourselves and what
mm,
can put us in that very negative state of mind. Now, when you watch the WNBA now, I'd love for you to take a test for yourself. Just be quiet
okay.
and listen to yourself, right? First, first thought that comes before it hits 10 seconds, grab it, reverse the thought, meaning replace it with, doesn't even have to be, oh yeah, she's got great shorts or whatever. Because
Yeah.
it has to be something where you're gonna believe it, right?
Right.
Replace it with something positive. And I know it
Mm.
sounds crazy. When I was little, we watched this movie called Pollyanna, and I know
Yeah,
you know about that
I
movie.
know the movie.
That movie is one of the most effective movies, and it should be played over and over again because she played the glad game. Everything negative that came out, she replaced it with, I'm glad it's this. Oh, I'm glad I get to have cookies tonight. Now I find myself doing that because you literally change your day. So
Yeah, and
when you're
no matter
watching
how
the
bad it was going for her, she found something to be glad about.
right, so
Right.
people watching, go watch the original movie of Pollyanna. Very good
Mm.
movie. But
Haley Mills.
hmm? Haley
Haley
Mills.
Mills. Yeah.
Excellent movie. So when you're watching the WNBA, think of something positive in that moment to stop that regret because it's you that's feeling it. And the last thing I'll
I
say on
found
this,
one.
you found one?
I already found one.
Okay, go for it.
I would think of for every player, I would think of every proud mom watching them. That just made me feel good. It did.
That was good. I didn't think that was going to be it, but that was good.
I was looking for one.
Right.
That was it.
So you feel how it literally is
It
like an
lifted me.
aura. It's a
It
vibration
lifted
that you
me.
feel. It lifts you, right?
Yep.
So think about if you're lifted in your feeling, how much can you do God's work,
Right.
which is your purpose in life,
Hmm.
as
Hmm.
opposed to, so now let's bring the camera back to the procrastinator.
Hmm.
It's the lifting that they need to do.
Yeah.
That's where it's heavy lifting, but the biggest gym and the best gym you'll ever go to, GYM, grow your mind. That
Ooh,
is the best gym you'll
ooh,
ever, right.
I'm stealing it.
Grow your mind, the best gym you'll ever go on. Grow your
Mm,
mind, eavesdrop on yourself. There's more, but and remember, things when we were kids are the best things to go to remember
mm,
because there's a certain childlike mentality that we're supposed to maintain as adults, but do it as adults. If you look at kids, they find the most joyous parts of life.
yes.
I mean, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, they're jumping up and down for if they get it.
No, I
And
do.
I've learned to bring that back into my life. I'll do it around children, but I haven't done it with Lisa. So you start your day with gratefulness. These are the things that get rid of procrastination and stagnation.
Hmm. Yeah. That's powerful. You dropped some gems there. That's dope. Okay. So let's get on to the next question. What are some things you think causes us to delay hitting the gas on a plan or desire, and how do we know if the reason is justified? I think we may have maybe touched on that a bit.
What stops a lot of us from hitting the gas is fear.
Ah, Okay,
Fear,
good. Yeah.
fear and
What's that?
doubt. We didn't touch those two friends of ours.
Right.
So fear and doubt, of because what it is we know before we hit the gas, right? We know what this life looks like right here, right now. Why? Because we're living right here, right now. I know how to navigate through this, Lisa.
Right.
What does that Lisa look like when I hit the gas? I don't know.
Mm,
So who is that? What's going to be up there? So it's more fear of
mm,
what's up there that is making people not hit the gas because I know this me and I know how to do this me. Even the
right.
things that are negative, even the
Mm,
procrastination, I've lived in
yeah.
it. I don't know who that me is when I don't procrastinate. And what if it doesn't work? The real question is that we should be asking. This is again the listening to how you speak to yourself. What if it does work?
Mm,
What if it does? So, what stops us from pressing the gas is imagine writing to yourself. And the writing is your thoughts of what you have about just yourself and your life on an everyday basis. What does that paper look like? Is it a
mm,
love letter or is it defaming,
mm.
degrading? Most of us have a degrading paper, and we
Wow.
have to kind of tell ourselves, we've got to pay attention to that. And I've honestly started writing appreciation to myself because you got to rewire those thoughts. You ever do something like, let's say, you drop something and be like, the klutz in me. You just told yourself
Yeah.
you're a klutz.
Right.
And we do that with our children sometimes. We'll go, oh, you so goofy. Boom. These are the things I know I'm saying, like, these are the things. Now imagine, think about your NBA example that you gave yourself when you thought of the beautiful thing. Think
Hmm.
about telling a kid they're goofy, or if a kid stutters, and you're telling them that's what they're getting and they're receiving. You got to think of yourself when
Yeah.
I've described things previously and been like, me and my dumb self, wow.
Mm,
So
yeah.
everything counts.
My
Everything
go-to word is
counts.
idiot. I'm
Right.
always calling myself an idiot.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that because these are the things that stop. This is why when you ask yourself, why didn't I go to the gym? Because you're an idiot. I mean, you get it.
Yeah, and I say it playfully to myself, but still, there's something behind all of that. There is seriousness about that. I really, I'm not happy with myself for
So go
that.
back to
So,
what you asked. Let's rewind that to the question. I can give you a great closing. What stops people from hitting the gas? They may hit the gas, but they may have put junk gas in their car instead of the
mm,
Supreme. And if you put junk gas in your car, it's not moving. I
mm,
remember you remember we had a gas shortage and I had a BMW and they only had regular gas. My car stopped driving after all. And I
ooh,
had to clean out the gas to put the premium in. What does your gas pump look like when you're pumping gas in? And that will tell you why the car doesn't go when you ask it to go.
which button are you pushing? Wow. And so that's a good analogy because a lot of times what matters to people in that instance is the cost.
The best things in life are free.
Mm,
And so the cost of changing the gas to Supreme, um, in your mind is really free. It's a matter of rewording the way you deal with yourself.
mm.
But the benefits are spiraling up because you're going into a better mindset, a better mind frame.
Two more questions. We'll try to make it short so we can wrap this up. So, what are some ways we can be negatively affected by stagnation, physically, mentally, spiritually? And how would you prioritize addressing those things? How do you arrange the physical, mental, and spiritual self in terms of healing? Like in this case, creating movement in our lives to mitigate stagnation. So, do you address yourself spiritually, uh, mentally, or physically first? What would you say the proper priority is for that?
I would say spiritual is always going to go first because before I do anything, I go silent and
Mm,
I meditate, and that's where prayer goes down. And because I don't want to make any decisions or moves based off of the state of mind that's present when
mhm,
I'm in a stagnated mindset, because it creates more, like attracts like. So it's going to create more of the same thing. In a
mhm,
relationship, I think everyone can attest to they can go yelling and screaming and be 100% correct at what they're coming at their mate yelling
mhm,
about.
mhm,
Very rare, so I won't put it as never. Very rare are you getting ready to get a good outcome. What you give, you get back. You cannot give someone pain and expect joy back. So when I'm in that position of regret, uh, in the pain, whatever it is, I have to first deal with that. And that would be the spiritual side. I put my
mhm,
spirits in the right place.
mhm.
Then after that, everything else falls into place.
Some people may have a hard time distinguishing between the spiritual and the mental. I think a better way to make it understandable and maybe easy to separate the mental from the spiritual is to, let's say, let's replace mental with emotional. So if there's our spiritual, emotional, and then physical self. I use the word emotion because a lot of times we operate from that instead of our spiritual faculties, where we're hearing from the Christ within or God within, whatever you out there, look to as a higher power. But emotionally speaking, those kinds of reactions, I would venture to say they get you into trouble much easier and more often than trying to follow your spirit, so um emotionally I feel like you know we have to deal with that as well. But if your spirit is intact, if you got the spirit lined up, then I believe your emotions will follow, because there's a discipline that comes with cultivating yourself spiritually, that it's almost like now you have become the puppeteer in a sense to your emotions. Now your spirit's in charge, that higher part of you is in charge. And so, okay, I can agree that I believe, yes, always spiritual health should come before anything, and so then follows your emotional being, and then your physical being. You'll get moving and start to manifest the things that, or at least the instruction that you've been given in the spirit realm. So yeah, everybody, I said it on my last show with Holly that we really gotta try to chill on making those fast decisions, and answering quickly. We don't take enough time to breathe and to contemplate and really think about what we're feeling. And sometimes that pause means that, yeah, that's, at least for me, I use it as an opportunity to make sure my ego is intact, is in check. I try to make sure my ego is in check, because you know we got a lot of emotions: anger, fear, um excitement. Even, I've done things feeling too excited, and then once the smoke cleared, what country did I land in? You know what I'm saying? So um I personally know that when I am disciplined on a spiritual level, yeah, uh, I tend to make better decisions. When I slow down, and when I take a second to breathe, and when I don't just react, and I'm not reactionary, then yes, better decisions are made. And now, what I noticed in that, and we're talking about stagnation here, just to bring it back. I noticed that for me, I get a whole lot more accomplished when I take care of myself in that order. So yeah, stillness, that works for me as a starting point. Just be still. All right. So just our last question. Can you offer some suggestions on how to get unstuck? So for like the person that might be might be living in squalor because the house is dirty, closets, like you said, are disorderly. Maybe their car is not clean. Maybe they haven't cleaned out their refrigerator. Uh, and these are things they want to do. These things bother them. They want to get them done. They go to other people's houses. They see the clean house, the clean car, and everything's in order, and they want that for themselves. And other things too. Let's say somebody who's got the master's degree and you're still working on getting your bachelor's, but something's always getting in the way. You're not hitting the gas on these things, for many different reasons, but you want to get them done. So it's the dream we're focusing on. It's what it is that we want to accomplish that we're focusing on, but we are stuck. We don't know how to get unstuck. How do we break from that spirit of procrastination, that stagnation? How do we begin to get things moving again?
The best answer I can give is obviously we know what we want. Every coin has two sides. So you know what you want by just telling or communicating what you don't want. It's always on the other side. The energy is always on the other side. So,
Right.
um, how I like to look at things now is the the backup and the move forward. Zoom in, zoom out. So,
Mm,
how to stop the stagnation. So you're already zoomed out. You can honestly, there's a benefit to when you're zoomed out and zoomed in. In this situation, when you're setting a goal, the benefit is to be zoomed out. You see the
mm,
whole picture. That's where I'm going. So let's say the person with the beautiful house. I'm zoomed out. This is what I want, right? But there's a lot of moving parts to it. Now I'm going back in my house. The key is zoom in, go into one area and begin there
mm,
because you have to take it in steps. Whoever it is that had the house they have, they didn't get there in that one instance. That's a series of discipline. So
mhm,
the key is to zoom in because it would be equivalent to, you know how you give birth to a child and that infant is with you and you don't put a bowl of salad in front of that infant when they first come out, they cannot do anything with it.
right.
That's
Right.
just like going home, like, well, so and so had this big house, and now you're trying to fix it all in that one moment. You literally
Yeah.
gave the infant steak
Mm,
at that point. And not
mm,
only did you give the infant steak, he's going to try maybe to, but it's going to be a fail. He's going to choke. It's going to be a
mhm,
whole disaster. That's equivalent to
mhm,
people. So our
mhm,
biggest error is when we, for the most part, because there are some things we can kind of jump, it just depends. But for the most part, one of the best things to do is start in the small areas and build
mm,
and build up from there. It's
mhm,
just like when you crawl, a baby will crawl those muscles. So I'll give a quick story.
mhm,
I heard a great story that kind of gave me the understanding of the power of progression, which is what my business, that's like the tagline, power of progression. There's a boy walking on the beach and he sees a mama turtle up ahead by the water. So she was about 5 feet in front of the baby turtle. And he sees the baby trying to get through the sand. And he's like, oh, let me help. And I'll help the turtle get to his mom. Picks up the baby turtle, runs him the 5 feet ahead, places him in the water, and he felt great about himself. And that turtle was trying to swim and died
aw,
because the
mm,
The key to the turtle, why the mother leaves the baby, is because the muscles that he gains as he's walking those feet,
mm,
that's the progression, so that when he gets into the water, he now is an avid swimmer.
mm,
So, looking at that picture from here is running up to that water without running those 5 feet by yourself.
yeah.
Right here is starting 5 feet. It's a small place, starting in an area and working up from there.
One small step at a time.
That is crucial for life.
I love that example. I've actually used it in my own life to get things going that, where I was showing some stagnation, because I kept I kept looking at it from the zoomed out position and be like, how am I ever
Get
going to get this
overwhelming.
done? Yeah. So for instance, my bachelor's degree, I'm in my 40s and I'm just now getting it. And so for a long time I thought, eh, what does it matter now? But um, I decided to go ahead and keep trying to get it. And I'm telling you, I had to look at it from a standpoint, okay, one course at a time. Just don't worry about how much you have to do, how many courses you have to take, one course at a time. And then even further zoomed in, I had to say, okay, one assignment at a time. Because when I start to look too much at the big picture, yeah, it gets discouraging. I want to throw in the towel. And yeah, it's like that's what took me so long to get this done. And so yeah, it wasn't until I zoomed in and just took it slow that suddenly, and let me tell you something, when you actually see the finish line, the motivation I got to keep going and to not stop, because something about seeing that finish line is like you're going to get a push from nowhere that you're not even expecting. So
Yeah,
I love that example that you used. Thank you so much. And do you have any final thoughts before we close out?
absolutely. I have my Jerry Springer moment.
You had to do it. Go
Couple of
ahead.
thoughts I'd like to share with the audience that can help in their journey on combating procrastination because it's not a one and done thing. Have honor and respect for yourself for the little wins. Those are the big wins because the little wins are the big wins. Don't compare yourself to someone else because we don't know the journey they took to get to where they are. And sometimes it may be just be that segment of their life
Mm,
that they may be excelling in, and there are other areas. Honor when the next opportunity to look at procrastination comes around, because once you've conquered one, they always say the top of one mountain is the bottom of another. This is how
mm,
you know you're moving and you're growing. So you can kind of respect, okay, I'm ready for the next one. And the better your mindset is as you approach each mountain, you're going to do very well. Two scriptures that I feel like are really, really, really uh we should always keep these in our mind. We can do all things
mm,
through Christ who strengthens me. It's the facts. There's nothing you've ever tried that you never stopped trying to get that you didn't get. None of us. There's also never a battle that you didn't go through that you didn't survive because you're watching this podcast. So you can do all things. Between that and the Most High is the great restorer. So things
mm,
you feel like you missed out on, you really never missed out on them because what's yours is going to be there. It's yours. You're not missing out. There is no regret. So if I look back at your WNBA, for example, in the things that we think were things we missed in life, our purpose is in our pain. And
mm,
that is why we go through it because you made it through, and there is a Joe out there that's
mm,
waiting to be scouted. And maybe she gets out there and it's like, I can relate to that because as a dancer, when I went on tour, my whole life I danced and wow, I got on tour, did the Grammy Awards, right? And I found myself while on tour feeling like, I'd rather go home now. It got dull a little bit, but I didn't
mm,
realize that was just me at the top of one mountain and it was time to move up to the next mountain.
mm,
So the best thing you can do is listen to yourself. Because in that moment, if I would have heard that Lisa say, oh, I'm bored, I could have used that as the understanding. Maybe I'm now meant to choreograph instead of being the dancer on the stages. There's always
mm,
levels to your gifts, and you have everything that it takes to make it come true because that's why it's yours and that's why God gave it to you. And the scripture, He won't put on you more than you can bear. I take it as your gift is made for you,
mm,
and the things that come along with your gift, you can take it. You're the soldier for it. That's what he's not putting on you more than you can bear, because everything that it takes to make your gift come to fruition is already in you. You just have to get up and move. Travel those 5 feet down into that sand and go swimming. One of my favorite lines from a song on The Last Dragon, and if you don't know this out there, you
Mhm.
lose your card.
Gone, gone, gone. Let's go. What is it? I'm waiting.
In the song, you possess the power to survive your darkest hour. Everything is in you. Oh, the dragon.
That's right. Yeah, and I mean we laugh and we joke, but that movie, serious, serious
Serious.
business, man. And if you
Serious.
don't know, you better go watch it again and really, really pay attention to the messages and the songs. A lot of people, they ignore the soundtrack, but that soundtrack is fire, especially for spiritual growth. You know what I'm saying? So with that said, Lisa, I want to thank you again. You have dropped some gems for us. I do hope the audience got the chills from the things that you said the way I did, because a lot of those things hit home for me. I'm so appreciative of the wisdom that you shared with us today, because I always want to look for ways to elevate, you know what I'm saying? And sometimes we do need some sort of a guide, a new perspective. You can't do it all alone, people. So let's always try to reach for those things and people that we have around us that could help to lift us up. It's very, very necessary. So I will end with this simple quote from a movie that I love: get busy living or get busy dying. That is from Shawshank Redemption, if you don't know. Keep it moving. Let's keep this body moving. Keep your dreams moving. Keep everything moving. Get busy living, get busy dying. This has been a great episode on Spiraling Up.